Let's talk about Devin the Dream Haney and some remarks that have been made by Paulie Malignaggi in terms of predictions for the lightweight division moving forward. He's also sprinkled some bait on there, and a lot of people have bitten up to it, which I think was Paulie's aim, to be honest with you. We'll talk about all these things, and as always, whenever we're covering controversial topics, you know how I like to do it here. I like to give you honest assessments, considering all sides of an argument, and at the end of the day, what that tends to mean is that you never take sides. And when you never take sides, and it's a very emotive subject, you're caught up in the center of the battlefield. So you're getting arrows from all directions, from both sides of the aisle. There are arrows flying from the right, arrows flying from the left, and you're sitting there and you're ducking and diving and moving and jiving, and you wake up and you still got a couple of arrows in your head. There's nothing you can do. Well, that's what we're going to try and avoid here, but you know how it is online. So all I can do is try and cover this with integrity and honesty, and hope that people are able to engage with the conversation intellectually and not emotionally. Paulie Malignaggi has come out and said that he believes that Devin Haney is going to essentially duck Vasyl Lomachenko. He believes that Loma is essentially being prepared to be fed Devin Haney. He believes that Loma is far too good for Haney. Haney will fight Loma. Loma will take the belts off him. From that point forth, when Loma starts to show signs of decline, Top Rank will feed Lomachenko to Shakur Stevenson. That will ensure the maximization of profit for a long period of time, because any other alternative would mean that if Devin Haney moves away from Top Rank with the belts, he takes that status with him. If he ends this contract with one more fight and he goes back to the zone, they lose a major asset financially. Whereas if Loma topples that asset, they still have the king. And because the king is aging, they want to put a dagger in the hand of the prince, Shakur Stevenson, and when Loma is weak enough, you go and take the crown. This is the Machiavellian business logic that Paulie Malignaggi is applying. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense. However, Paulie Malignaggi is also saying that he does not believe that Devin Haney is going to cooperate. He believes that Devin Haney is going to refuse to fight Lomachenko and then move up to 140, which would mean the belts become fragmented. That leaves Top Rank in a mess, because now Lomachenko or Shakur, if he steps up, their fighters have to suddenly go and try and reclaim the gold rather than claiming it in one go via Vasyl Lomachenko. So Haney could really put a spanner in the works for Top Rank. But where the bait came in, where the bait was sprinkled on, is Paulie worded it as in, I don't think you'll fight Loma, but that's the white boy that would beat you. Now, what is this in reference to? A few years ago, Devin Haney came out and said something that is said so often these days: I will never lose to a white boy. And so this is in reference to that. Now, this does come across as a bit petty from Paulie Malignaggi, but like I said, we're always going to be honest and look at things from all sides. One of the things that doesn't make sense to me is people that are saying this proves that Paulie Malignaggi is somehow racist. Well, Paulie is referring to a comment that was racial by somebody else, and he's mocking him for it. That doesn't make you racist. Now, if we're going to be totally honest here, and this is not something that bothers me at all, you know, that comment about losing to a white boy, but there is one comment that the Haneys in general have made that I did actually find to be offensive. And I'm not talking about it in a snowflake type of way, but it's something that made me think, like, how dare you? That's a disgusting comment to make. And that was Bill Haney. Bill Haney in an interview started talking about white Jesus. And I think the phrase he used is, we'll stomp on white Jesus. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows in the comments, but I believe this was a reference to Vasyl Lomachenko. Regardless, you cannot be talking about a religious figure of a religion you don't follow in that way. You're going down the pathway of the likes of Conor McGregor, who's another scumbag, by the way. You can't be doing that. But if that's the route you want to take, because it's a free country in America, you've got free speech, you say what you want, right? If that is the route you want to take, well, then you've got to be prepared for the pushback from the opposing fan bases that aren't going to like you. You can't complain when you're mocked afterwards for the comments that you've made. Do you understand? In other words, if your attempt is to seek to divide in order to ensure that one group is drawn to you, That's your tactic. I ain't actually going to hold it against you. That's your thing. That's what you want to do to build up your fan base. That's all right. And he has come out, Bill Haney, on the Boxing Voice, and he's also said we've got the same fan base as Tank Davis, same demographics. So he's talking along those lines. Now, if that's what you want to push, okay. But like I said, when there is then pushback, you can't portray the other people who are pushing back as somehow being hateful against you. Now, let's be honest when it comes to the analysis of Paulie Malignaggi. And I will say this straight away. I don't agree with Paulie here. I think that Devin Haney does want to fight Lomachenko. He has come out in an interview and he said that while it requires a lot of discipline in order to make 135 pounds, he felt great in the ring against George Kambosos, and the big money fights are at 135. So there's absolutely nothing to suggest that he's not looking to fight Lomachenko. He's shown a willingness to fight Lomachenko in the past. He's often wanted that. So I also don't buy this new narrative that's coming out now, where I've seen a lot of people say Devin Haney has wanted to duck Lomachenko and will want to duck Lomachenko. No, he's chased that fight for ages. By the same token, I don't think Lomachenko's ducked Devin Haney, because the one remaining belt he did not have was Teofimo Lopez's belt. When Devin Haney was made mandatory to fight Loma, it was 1 month after Loma had beaten Luke Campbell or something like that. When was he going to fight you? What, did you expect him not to fight Teofimo next in order to fight Devin Haney? That would have been ducking Teofimo. That was the one remaining belt he didn't have. Now, had he beaten Teofimo Lopez and then started to hide behind the franchise belt and did not fight Devin Haney, then I would have agreed. And I would have said, right, he's ducked him now. Now he doesn't want anything of Devin Haney. He's wanting to avoid him. But until that moment came, which unfortunately for Loma, it never came because he lost to Teofimo Lopez, you can't accuse him of ducking. So I don't believe either one of these guys would duck the other one. Devin Haney will look at Lomachenko and think, I'm the significantly bigger man here. And not only am I bigger, this isn't a Luke Campbell situation for Loma, who Luke gave a good test to Loma, right? But it's not that situation here, because I'm a lot physically stronger than Luke Campbell and I know how to tie up more effectively. I'm going to be harder to get to. My speciality move, what I am capable of doing at the best of my abilities, is to keep a guy at range. So if I'm able to keep a guy at range, what makes you think that Lomachenko is going to be able to come inside on me? Loma's style has changed considerably over the years as he's gotten older and as he's moved through the weight categories. A prime Lomachenko was all about changing the angles on you, using superior foot speed, getting you turning and punching you off of that turn, hiding what he was trying to do, using feints and creating openings, but using his fantastic legs. He's not like this guy stylistically. The moves that they use and the way they go about their fights, don't get it twisted, that's not what I'm saying. But the concept of how he would go about his work was more like a Sonny Edwards. The concept behind what he does now is more like a Roman Gonzalez, because what he does now is he has to force his way in. He has to become a pressure fighter. He's too short to be in and out against these massive guys and keep you at the edge of range and turn you and things like that. Now he has to come inside, hide his body, change the angles while in the pocket and try and bust you up from up close. It's a different style. He can't afford to box and move against Devin Haney. He has to come inside. And Devin Haney is a specialist at stopping a guy doing that. So they are both going to be confident. Lomachenko's going to look at this and say, he likes to duck a lot. Every time he ducks forward, I'm not George Kambosos. I'm stepping around this guy. I'm too varied with my attacks on the inside. Every time he tries to grab me, I'm going to explode on the inside and I'm going to change the angle on him inside. Devin Haney's going to look at this and think, it's going to take you an age to get to me. Teofimo Lopez was able to turn with you and nullify your angles and keep you at range. I'm taller and longer than Teofimo Lopez. It's going to take you an age to get to me. And when you do, you're too small. I'm going to grab you. This is how they're both going to think. It doesn't matter what you predict's going to happen. I'm just explaining how I don't think either guy fears the other guy. Now, going back to Paulie Malignaggi and his prediction, this could be reverse psychology. It could be a method to get Devin Haney to feel as though he has to accept the fight and not step up. Because Devin Haney did come out and say Paulie's always been hating and things like that. So he has been aware of what Paulie Malignaggi is saying. And Paulie is influential. Now, I know a lot of people are trying to push this as some sort of racial thing or racial beef. There's one thing that people aren't mentioning. When Paulie says, I don't think he's going to cooperate and he's going to drop the belts. Roy Jones Jr. replies, exactly. Roy Jones is black. So what happens is, you look at something like Pro Box TV, forget feelings, forget emotions. If you're talking sheer analytical quality, Roy Jones Jr., Paulie Malignaggi and Antonio Tarver are three of the best boxing analysts you can come across. They're fantastic at what they do. And so if those three guys, or two of those guys in this case, Roy and Paulie, are insinuating that it's the smart Machiavellian thing to do, to duck in order to be tactical, and that's why they think you're going to go down that route, in some regards it's almost like you're taking it perhaps as, are these guys questioning my bravery? Nah, man, I'm going to have to silence these guys and disprove them and show the champion that I am, and I'm going to take the fight. So it almost acts like reverse psychology, like a trap, like bait. Now regarding Paulie Malignaggi and the history there of him losing his job at Showtime, he came out and he said, just to refresh people's memories, that the African-American dominance in boxing had passed by, and that he felt that the Eastern Europeans had started to emerge as the dominant force in boxing. Now, whether you agree with this or not, doesn't matter. You may very well feel that Paulie Malignaggi is completely wrong. But ultimately, what he's talking about is different cycles of dominant sporting cultures. You have to understand that during the golden age of boxing, when there are a lot of great fights of the past that we guys know about and talk about and have grown to love and watch throughout our lives, during that period of time, there was the Iron Curtain, there was communism, and they were not allowed to turn pro. So the source pool of talent was smaller. Since the Iron Curtain fell, after that for a good 10-15 years, there still wasn't a real influx of Eastern European fighters because the culture for them wasn't to turn pro. Remember, Alexander Usyk to this day says that the best moment of his boxing career was the Olympic gold medal. It wasn't beating Anthony Joshua for the unified heavyweight championship of the world. It wasn't the undisputed cruiserweight championship. He was asked if beating Tyson Fury and becoming undisputed heavyweight champion would top it. He said no. The biggest, greatest moment for him was the Olympic gold medal. In the Western world, the Olympics, the amateur scene, is almost seen as preparation for the pros. It's given almost less status, less gravitas. It's still a massive thing, right? You still get massive sponsorship. It puts you on your way to something great. But Audley Harrison, who's an Olympic gold medalist, isn't put on the same sort of status as a heavyweight who doesn't win a gold medal but wins a world title at heavyweight, like Tyson Fury. Harrison's not even considered in the same planet as Tyson Fury. So there's a different emphasis on these things, and it's only in more recent years that the Eastern Europeans have started moving into the pro game, and we are seeing a number of elite level Eastern European fighters, particularly in the bigger weight classes. You do have Alexander Usyk at heavyweight. Now, if you're going to extend it to beyond just Eastern Europeans and you talk about Europe as a continent, because remember, America's a big country, right? It's 331 million population, and apparently I read on Twitter they have 8 world champions currently. I've not counted them, but they have 8 world champions in a country of 331 million. The UK, which is just one country of Europe and only has a 68 million population, has 6 world champions. Now that says 2 world champions difference when you're talking about a vast difference in population. So you'd have to say either America is underachieving or Britain is punching above their weight, right? But if you start to look at the divisions and the most dominant fighters in all those divisions, you do have Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury at heavyweight. At cruiserweight, Maris Briedis, who is Eastern European, has literally just lost his titles. He's lost them to Opataya, who is Australasian, but you've also got Lawrence Okolie there. And remember, we're talking about sporting culture, boxing culture, the lessons that are passed on from one trainer to another. So Lawrence Okolie is European. I understand if you're Nigerian, you're going to claim him as African too, and that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But we're talking about sporting culture here. If a trainer is going to teach some kids in his neighborhood the boxing tools that he's been taught, in the past, traditionally speaking, those areas were sort of community dominated. So if it was an African-American trainer in an African-American community, who's he going to teach the skills to? African-American kids. An Italian-American former fighter who's going to teach kids in Bensonhurst in New York, an Italian-American neighborhood. Who's he going to teach them to? Italian-American kids, because that's who the locals are. So what would happen is you'd have this culture being spread through communities. Now, as the world has become more globalized, and we've seen trainers move around the world, I mean, you've got Ishmael Salas working with Joe Joyce, for instance, right? You start to see a mesh and a merging of different boxing cultures. But nonetheless, from the perspective of boxing culture, holistically speaking, in a generalized way, Lawrence Okolie's European. At light heavyweight, Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, the two top dogs at light heavyweight, they're Eastern European. At super middleweight, of course, you've got Canelo Alvarez. At middleweight, the dominant unified middleweight champion at the moment is still Gennady Golovkin. And yes, I know Charlo's in there. He might have something to say about it. But right now, the dominant middleweight is Golovkin. And you've also got, some Eastern Europeans coming through there, like Alim Kanuli. At light middleweight and welterweight, there's definitely a strong American presence there. You've got Jamel Charlo, you've got Terence Crawford, you've got Spence, you've got Boots Ennis. There's a real strong American presence there. The Americans are really strong there. Then you go to light welterweight. Well, there you've got Josh Taylor, who's the undisputed king. And underneath Josh Taylor, if you're talking about a guy who could have dethroned him, well, then you're talking about Jack Catterall. Again, both European. Lightweight is stacked. There are fighters from Europe, from America, all over. But Devin Haney is the undisputed lightweight champion of the world at the moment. Underneath him, you've got Shakur Stevenson, undoubtedly the main man. At featherweight, you've probably got Ray Vargas. Then more American presence with Stephen Fulton. After that, you start to see a lot more Asian fighters. You see the likes of Naoya Inoue. At Superfly as well, you've got Chocolatito, you've got Estrada. At flyweight, you've got another European in Sonny Edwards. The point is, there are so many fighters that are emerging really from Europe, whereby to say that at the moment, I don't think America is quite top of the pile, that doesn't make you somehow hateful in any way. You're just talking about sporting cultures. That's all it is. And I felt that Paulie was mistreated in that regard. And listen, just so you know that I am completely unbiased and completely honest, when Terence Crawford was accused of being racist for saying that Canelo Alvarez would not fight black fighters, he didn't want to fight black fighters, he was avoiding black fighters, he couldn't beat black fighters, whatever it is that he was saying, I did a video which is still on this channel where I was basically, and I will link it as a link so you guys can go watch that video if you want, somewhere in the top corner of the screen towards the end of this video, whereby I'm talking about how I believe he's not referring to race per se, but he's referring to boxing culture. He wasn't talking about black Africans, he was talking about African Americans. He's talking about the culture. And although I felt he was wrong in his argument, Canelo has fought numerous African American fighters, Danny Jacobs, Austin Trout, so on and so forth. What he was saying was not racist. So I came out to bat for Terence Crawford. By the same token, let's say the Cubans are allowed to turn pro. And in 10 years from now, you start to see Cuban fighters winning multiple titles in multiple weight categories. And somebody turns around and says, listen, the African-American dominance or the European dominance, whoever had been on top prior to them turning pro, is now over. And we are in the era of Cuban boxing dominance. That's not racist against African-Americans or Europeans. Now, the person making that statement might be wrong. You might turn around and say, actually, slow your roll, you're getting ahead of yourself here, because although they've had a lot of success, most world champions still come from this place, or the pound for pound top fighters still come from that region, not from Cuba. But the point is, as a statement of analysis, it's not racist. Now, when it comes to me, race is not a motivating factor when it comes to who I'm rooting for in sport. For me, it's all about values, the values of a person. That's who I root for. That's genuinely true. Some people used to say, oh, you rate Kambosos because he's Greek. What people don't realize is that there are fighters out there who I would not root for. I would actively root against who are of Greek origin because I didn't like their values. Not just in boxing, in the UFC, in mixed martial arts in general. That's not who I am. But because I'm trying to be fair and analyze this and say, actually, I don't think Paulie is what they're trying to portray him to be. But I also disagree with what he's saying regarding Devin Haney in this regard. I think Devin Haney is going to want to fight Lomachenko, and I think he will. And I think he has a great chance of winning that fight. Lomachenko also has a great chance. But because I'm being honest, what's going to happen is I'm going to get arrows from both sides, just like I said. And all we can do on this channel is try and be honest and open. It was certainly petty from Paulie, there's no doubt about it. But when you're reacting to something that someone else has said, which is controversial, and like I said, with Bill Haney too, it's not the first time and it's not the only time they've ever made this comment. Because you're getting a lot of people saying, well, it was a long time ago. They make these comments quite consistently, or they had done in the past. You're going to get people that are going to push back. They're not going to like you. That's just a reality. Anyway, let me know what you think, ladies and gents. It's a contentious issue. I don't want to see anyone posting anything vile or hateful in the comment section. I will be removing it. Don't be like that. If you're going to engage with each other, have intelligent, civilized conversations. We're all human beings. Remember, I always sign this channel out with take care and God bless. I'm a Christian dude. According to my faith, according to Christianity, you have to understand the very concept of human rights stems from Christian natural law. The idea is that because we are all human beings with valuable souls that belong to God, we are all equal. There cannot be one soul above another in importance. That's the view that I have. So when you're on this channel, please remember that. I don't want to see any racial arguments in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.